Patrik, such a pleasure to have you here at Artist Chat. Let's start a bit in an unconventional way. You can decide how you want to start this conversation.
Okay, so leaving it like that. Okay, so I classify myself as a sculptor. As we can see in this Artist Chat studio, you can see many other things. Sometimes at the moment I might be classified as a painter. I go for it as a sculptor. I've always wanted to work with space, and at a very early beginning in my life, I knew that I wanted to be an artist. My mom taught me to be free with these things, to accept them, and kind of be like more emotional, I guess, with that. So, and also my dad, of course. The family was important with that, with the way I grew up. And at a very early beginning, I think roughly around 6, 7, I wanted to be an artist. I really liked the fact that someone can create something and it can kind of have a message or can convey something. And the romanticism of it was completely... I wanted to do that, and I wanted to be a cook. For a really long time, actually. And I love cooking, I love food, it's wonderful. I'm always so sad when food doesn't like give you the message that you want. But, well, then there's this part of my life where I grew up in America, and then we moved to the Czech Republic, and I moved here when I was 12. And roughly around 14 years, I was going to this drawing lesson, figurative drawing lesson, and it was taught by a sculptor. And that was like one of those moments where I was like, yo, okay, I want to be a sculptor. I definitely wanted the thing from the sixth year. I was like, yeah, I did a lot of artistic stuff. I played the saxophone for a long time, and I always did some kind of artistic kind of thing that helped me express myself. And there were always these little nuggets that were like, yeah, but you like the art and you want to be a sculptor and kind of like think like that. So that was one of the impulses. And then there was another teacher in my, what is that? Základní umělecká škola, the primary art school. And he was like, oh, you have like this way of thinking as a sculptural thinking. So there was these things that I kind of like wanted to hear. So these kind of like stuck, and I was like, okay, so I definitely want to be an artist, and I want to be a sculptor. And it's like, yeah, but how do I do it, or how do I get to it? So there were these like, no one taught me. My parents definitely supported me with everything, but there were these moments where it was kind of like against it. So when it came to breaking the bread, it was like, okay, so you want to go to college, but it's not that lucrative to be an artist or be a sculptor. I found it funny because, yeah, you want to support me with everything, but I want to do that. So because we have a family construction company, I was like, okay, so I like the construction. I've been working with my dad for a really long time. And I kind of found it interesting to go for architecture. So I studied architecture for a year, and then I moved on to industrial design. All of these things were really similar to sculpture, to thinking about space, constructing stuff around me, and really like changing my environment with the design or with the architecture. And each time I kind of got closer to being more creative, it was like, yeah, but there's something more. There's always that thing that is like, yes, but you want to be an artist. And there were times that I was like, okay, I really loved the academy, the whole scene in Prague. When I was young, I was like really, really into that. I went to every Vernissage and everything. And it was really cool to see the stuff that it really like moved me. So I was like, yeah, one day I actually want to like to think about the possibility that I could actually be accepted into this school would be really cool. So then it happened. I mean, yeah, I went for it. I kind of said, fuck, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna put everything towards that, and it worked out, which was very lovely. So that's part of like what's coming up. And last year, this is 2014, I guess I could say, no, 2014, 2024, and last year I finished my studies at the Academy of Fine Arts.
You mentioned a couple of things that are interesting. During these years, were there some sculptures where you look up to that inspire you? Or artists more in general?
Artists more in general. It's kind of funny. I'm really inspired by painters. One of my most important painters that I've come up I like everything. I mean, flowers, the floor, everything has something that has this potential, and it can inspire you as an artist. I mean, why is it sometimes that light from the window comes in and you say, oh, this is a beautiful moment, and it's the same as art, and it could be photography, it could be drawing, it could be anything. But if I more or less point it at sculptors or artists or painters, Louis Bourgeois, very strong woman that is really strong with her expression and the existence of the pieces. I really love that. She's a very big inspiration. During my studies, at the beginning of my studies, I think, I kind of stumbled upon Thomas Houseago. He's a really awesome British sculptor. The thing that I really like about him is that there's this never-ending need to create something, and it's so frustrating. And I kind of get the sense that each time that person, maybe I don't know him, but each time he created something, he wasn't satisfied, and he kept moving and he kept going, and there's this real like moment of frustration with himself, and I feel that that's just like so much energy. So his pieces are full of energy, and that's something that I really appreciate and like. The teacher that I was studying at, Lucas Richtrein, I like his approach. I like the way he thinks. I like nothing's not possible, and I can move on. But one of the most important, Neo Rauch, German painter, I really like the surrealistic thinking. It's just a painting, but there's more. There's a landscape. I find what he's creating are these sculptural scenarios, but he's a painter. And sometimes, or for my diploma work, I was thinking about how each time I looked at him, the painting or the book, I have many books of him. Each time I looked at something, I was like, yes. It always sparks that moment where you want to create something, and I really love that. Each time I look at any book of my favorite artists, it always sparks joy, and there's this moment where I just want to continue, just want to make something.
You have this, you feel there's actually this constant need in you to create? It's like, it resonates with you a lot.
Yeah, there are these moments where I actually have to, because if I get physically sick. I'm a workaholic. I'm just gonna put that out there. A lot of people know that I'm a workaholic. I just like to do stuff. I like to work. I like to think about things. There's not a moment where I wake up and don't think about doing something or thinking about something. How does this work? What can I do here? How do I work that? And I just, there's always this always everlasting need to move on. I might be hyperactive.
Cool. You touched on this before, and then we can. I wanted to ask you about this. You talk about the light coming through the window or the floor and the flower. Are these actually everything around you is a constant source of inspiration, or can you maybe give us a detail about when you decide to create something? What is the sparkle, or what is the process behind that?
Very good question, because during my studies, or during the time that I decided to create something, or to fully fledge myself into the act of becoming an artist, I realized that there are things that you should listen to yourself, and there are these moments where I'm listening to, yes, there are these little moments, like, what is this? There's this rhythm. And I started to listen to this rhythm, and this rhythm was things around me, as you said, flower, window, bed, stool, and there's a constant conflict with me working because it's necessary to work. You have to make your ends meet. You have to make money, whatever, whatnot. And this rhythm is me dealing with these situations. The situations are, okay, I'm in a spot that I don't want to be in. What can I take out of it? What's the positive of this spot that I don't want to be in? And it's kind of like I don't know if that's the American thought of let's be positive about everything. I really like this kind of mentality, and it kind of like sticks with me, but I try to be positive about any other situation that I'm in, even though I don't like it. And that's kind of like that's the thing that I work with. That's my main inspiration. So that's one of the main inspirations. So wherever I am, I will find something that is very important to me in that context, and then I apply it in my sculptural thinking or my everlasting need to create something, because that's part of me. Otherwise I get physically sick. It's just that when I stop doing stuff, I just don't feel like myself. It's not like, oh, I have to do something. I actually really have to do something. Otherwise I feel horrible.
I want to go into more in detail, and let's talk about one of artwork that is very important to you. You can select one and tell us a bit about that, and in detail also about more the process, right? From the idea to the final realization, and also the technique. It's interesting too.
The rhythm, that moment where I realized was with this piece, and that's the most important piece for me. This is called mrzák in Czech and cripple, I guess, in English. That was that moment where I realized that this rhythm has this kind of sequence, and it's about these moments in my life, and it's about work. In my ideology of these things is that we're kind of like slaves to work and to the work table, and the table has its legs, and they impair you. So you're kind of all of a sudden in this moment of a frustration, a tense moment where the figure is impaired and you can't do anything, you can't shield yourself, you can't move. That's why it's kind of like this, just there, and it can't protect itself. I was really overworked at the time that I was thinking about this piece, or like working at the moment. At that time, it was like 4 years ago, and even though I was really like stressed about what I was dealing with at the time, I still found this like really important moment of what I can take out of it, which is this weird curiosity of me that I just try to make something positive out of it. And the positive thing is that I kind of got an idea, but the work itself might not be positive. But there's so many situations where it's relatable. It's contemporary. It can be. I started to think about this, what it means to be contemporary, or what it means to be relatable in this sense, and I kind of like clicked together. So this rhythm that I keep now repeating is, what is this? I'm thinking about kind of things that I'm dealing with in my life, and what we were dealing with, all of us at the time. I mean, it could be whatever, relationships, work-related stress, or something like that. And I find that really interesting. It's like this synthetic structure. It's a synthetic inspiration, or so this piece for me is important because it has that time frame, but it also speaks out of that time frame. Each time I look at it, it could be made yesterday. It could have been made yesterday. And I really like the piece for the reason that it just conveys a message. I mean, just let alone in a room, whatever room, in a space, and it can tell you exactly what you needed.
Can you tell me a bit about the process? For instance, we're talking about the rhythm, very important, and you got this concept, you feel the need to create, right? How this transforms into this? Is that you go through sketches, you think about that for days, or is just something like kind of impromptu action?
Yeah. I like to say about myself that I'm a really slow person. These things take time, even though my execution is really fast. For instance, these things kind of like they need to ferment. I like to think about them, and then every day I wake up and just add a little bit. So these things that kind of seem like really fast are just really thought out, and it takes time because I find myself as a very introverted person, and I just kind of refine it, think about it, and I need an emotion. I need something that at the moment, I can't do it spontaneously. I have to have like, okay, I wake up and then I say, this could be the day, this could be the moment. And then all of a sudden it just switches and then I just go for it. And a lot of things actually are made like this, but it just takes time. I actually build up to that situation where there's a catalyst and it's made. And this piece actually, this is the cast of the piece. The original has different legs, and the legs actually I found from a table somewhere along the way when I went to school back in the day, and I just decided, it was raining, and there were really nice legs. And me being from me being Czech, but also from America, I really like Bruselski still. The design of the legs are really like subtle, and I've always drawn these weird, I find them creepy, these like really slender legs. And as soon as I saw that discarded table, I was like, I have to have these legs. So I took them. I destroyed them. Well, I didn't destroy them, but I took them off the table, and it was this construction site. So I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to take it. I had them for 4 years, and I said, I want to make something out of them, but I don't know what. And then all of a sudden, there was this thought that just kind of like mixed, and it came through. And I was actually in this kind of position when I was in the tram going to where I lived at the time. And I was like, man, I feel like shit. And then I decided to sketch it, and I sketched. And this is what I do most of the time. I sketch until there's this moment where I can't sketch no more because the drawing has to be in space. So I sometimes draw in space all of a sudden. There's this mix of what can be drawn and what can be drawn in space. These are not sculptures, but these are sketches. I like to think about these as sketches. But I decided after drawing that I need to mold it or to model it. So I did the construction, and I always make it in clay, because clay for me is a very traditional way of creating stuff. I also do assemblage, but the clay has this like limitation, but also these possibilities that are really like, I guess fresh. I could say fresh. It's malleable, and yeah, that kind of just came through. It was really about emotion and about things that were kind of like together, and sometimes it kind of just clicks. It just makes sense. All of a sudden, the things that I'm living through or dealing with at the time just kind of materially just kind of come out.
Really interesting. I want to discuss also your painter aspect, if you wish.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about, for instance, this artwork? This one is another artwork that you have in mind. I'm also curious about that. I know you consider yourself a sculptor, and we see. I'm also curious about why sometimes throughout this rhythm and process you talk about, you decide at a certain point that the best way to express is through a painting rather than a sculpture.
Okay, because painting kind of gives it a different depth, or it kind of, for me, it gives it a different dimension of space for the sculpture. All of a sudden, why? There was this kind of moment in my life where I started dealing with the fact of who is it that is me in my head, because in English, it's that in English you're a completely different person. You sound differently, you think differently, and you think about the potential of things differently. And in Czech, you're a completely different person also. And in whatever different language, it basically doesn't matter. It's just that there's these parallels, and the reactions are different. You learn a different. I guess it's a lifestyle basically, and me growing up in the English mindset, coming into the Czech mindset, it kind of really it's frustrating in a sense. And a few years back, I think that was like 2 years ago, I had this like moment where I needed to deal with that in myself, because each time I'm at work, I speak a lot in English, And each time I kind of like really start to get these gears moving, it's like, damn it, who is this person? Because I start thinking completely differently, and it seems so familiar because it's really important for me. I used to speak in English before, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, so what is this? What is this moment in my head that I'm like, okay, what is this? So I was trying to figure out who is that kid that kind of got cut off at 12 years old and started thinking in Czech, or was forced to think in Czech. And I was thinking about, okay, so if he had the possibility of having his own language or having his own art expression, I thought about it like that, and that's why maybe these paintings look a little bit like pop art, or pop-ish, because pop art is completely different. But in the visual sense, they could look like this. And I was trying to really think about what that kind of interpretation of language could be for that American person, or me, American Patrik. Otherwise, then if I had to say this could be the Czech Patrik, this could be the American Patrik, in that kind of like dual sense. But overall, it's me as a person. So the paintings, not only are they a thought process of space because they're reliefs, they're not just paintings, but it's also a sculptural discipline that they have this plasticity, they have this kind of surrealistic thinking to it. And what I like to say is that this is a sculptor's approach to painting, because I have really large respect for painters. I really love them. And Rauch is a really large inspiration for me. And I like, I'll never be able to paint. I always thought about that as myself. It's like there's never going to be that much time in the world that I will learn to paint that good. So I'm going to stick to sculpture, but I just wanted to have this, like, not a spin-off, but just to think about the possibilities of what this can be for me. And in my exhibition that was last year at Hybernska, I was trying to meld this entire situation of what the possibilities of this could be. Creating a landscape, creating a surrealistic sense of you're going into something, into a mind process, into something that, and the gallery space is wonderful, thanks to Philip. It has this really aggressive white space that kind of like creates this hazy or really floating effect, and it added really good effect to these things, not because they're just colorful, but also you kind of like travel into the space, and it's above space, and that kind of worked really well.
Can you tell us a second about the technique? I'm curious to hear.
The technique is because I've been working with, I really have a large fascination with everything. Everything inspires me. Materially, everything I find fascinating. I really like foam. Foam is really interesting, not just because it's all around us. We are born on it, we die on it, and it's really interesting in this kind of carnacity. It's there, it's always there. It's like this friend that never leaves you. And so the foam for me is a material that I've always used or found fascination in because of its sculptural quality, and that I can manipulate and bend it to my needs or to my thought processes. So I decided to upholster. Everything starts with the drawing. It takes a really long time it takes maybe a month. I have this idea, I draw it out small, and then I do it one-to-one. I use plywood. I upholster the plywood with the foam, and then I use painter's canvas. Painter's canvas is really important because that's what makes it actually a painting, conceptually wise. The painter's canvas, I use the most shittiest one as possible because it's the most easiest to bend or to my shape, because the more it's actually more quality. It kind of, there's this moment where it's just not that malleable, and I use gesso. I paint that, scrape it off, paint it again. There's this really like long process of making the painting, which I really like because I like to think about the thoughts that I think of. And so maybe a painting can take drawing and then creating the painting overall could take like 2, 3, 4 months, because it has this kind of time frame of the possibilities. For Heben Sky, we had to push that really, really hard, because I wanted to create new stuff. So I had to create new technological processes, which I really like thinking about. So that was really intense. But after the gesso is prepared, the surface is nice and shiny, I use industrial colors because they're commercial colors. To be a painter, I have so much respect for the paint. I will never be a painter. I just don't know, because each time I try to paint, there's this really weird smorgasbord of colors and possibilities, and with so many possibilities, it's just too much. With sculpture, there's good limitation, and I kind of like the limitation. So that's gravity. Gravity is your main limitation, and I like to think about that. So with the commercial colors or the industrial colors, there's my limitation. They're prefabricated. They have this definite message of, hey, I'm a green color, I'm a blue color, I'm a yellow color, and they're all around us also. I mean, in the urban landscape, we kind of move around without noticing these things, but cars have them. The public transports have them all around, and there's these like subtle moments of these colors being there. Roofings have them, rails, and it's kind of decent, but they're there. And I found them that they interpret their message in a really good way. So the message is obvious. When you see green and blue, you could get the sense that it could be the landscape, or it could be the azzurro of the skyline. So that's what leads me to use the colors that I use, and also because of their technical aspects of being washable, they're flexible, they have a really nice, neat shininess to them, so that makes them actually more kind of like disgusting in a way. And when these things are pushed together, they kind of create these different effects that give me something that I think about when I draw them, but it's never like this. I have it planned out 95% of the time, but the rest of the 5% is always like, oh, it's beautiful. I could not have done that. That's the thing with flowers. They're beautiful because you don't have control over them. You can cut them, you can put them in a vase, you can have them arranged as you want, but as they wither and as they die, they do something that you can't adjust. And these things I really like. So when I find something wherever, legs or a piece of wood, there's these like, yeah, it's a piece of wood, I could have done that, but there's always that thing that, yeah, but it's found. There's this thing that you don't have control over, and I really like that.
Patrik, tell us a bit about your future work.
Something that's important, because when I create a lot of stuff, I have a lot of photos, I have a lot of material, I have many things that I can work with, and one of the things that I've always wanted to work with is creating a book, or not really like creating a book, a written book, but a portfolio / book. So this I'm working with close friends of mine that are really important to me, and I appreciate their time and effort that has gone into it. People around me that are really important, and so this is going to be also published soon, and it's just going to be like this really fun thing for me. So that's kind of important. It has all the work that I've built up with and the thought process and the mix of things that I've actually produced over the years.
Thank you, Patrik. This conversation was very interesting. We touched upon many subjects. I think we covered them all. So thank you again for being here with us at Artist Chat, and I see you around Prague.
Thank you, Mauro. Thank you.